Hi guys! Today's video is something a little bit different. Rather than doing a review or any sort of vlog. This is more a kind of chatty video about an issue that has been playing on my mind for the past week or so. If you happen to follow me on Twitter, my Twitter name is @LynseyMac1. You will know that I spend a lot of my time on Twitter tweeting about TV shows that I'm watching, episodes of things that I have recently watched, and generally kind of engaging with the fandoms of the shows that I'm loving. So social media has given us this amazing platform that has allowed us to build these huge communities and fan bases around certain TV shows in a way that's so much more extreme than examples of fandom before. It's just so immediate. There's this sort of immediate discussion and connection, and people are live tweeting shows and discussing shows, and there's hashtags on the go and people are trying to get things trending, and it's very much this instantaneous access to other people who are loving the same shows that you are. And I think that that's important because sometimes you don't necessarily have anyone in your actual real life circle who watches a show that you really like, and there's just something wonderful about engaging with other people and talking to other people about a show that you're really excited about. When you fall in love with certain characters, when you get gripped by certain storylines, having other people to talk to about it is this hugely motivating thing to keep you engaged with the show. So this video has been kind of spurred on by something that happened in Once Upon a Time last week. Now, this video is going to be spoiler free. I'm not going to be talking in any detail about what actually happened within the show, and any shows that I reference throughout this as examples for what I'm talking about, I'm not going to give any spoilers away, so you can watch this video knowing that nothing's going to be ruined for you. I will be talking vaguely and generally about certain things that happen, but character names and plot lines and stuff are not going to be outlined. So, to bring us to the motivation for me filming this video. Last week, Once Upon a Time aired the penultimate episode of season 5, and it was one of the most controversial episodes I think they have ever aired. A character was killed off in this episode, somewhat unexpectedly for a lot of people, and in a way that most people completely disagreed with. This was a character who had been brought in and had been in the show for quite a long time, had become more and more of a regular occurring character over the course of the past couple of seasons, and was integral to another character's storyline and progression within the show. So losing that character has come as a huge blow to a lot of people within the fandom, and genuinely a huge surprise to most of the fans of Once Upon a Time. There's a lot of confusion over why this particular decision was made, a lot of sort of controversy about it going on Twitter, and the response to this situation is something that I think highlights a very interesting relationship between TV writing and social media. So the question that I really want to ask today, which is evident from the fact it's the title of this video, is should we hold TV writers to ransom? Now, before I carry on with this, I'm going to say quite bluntly that my answer to that question is no. We should not hold TV writers to ransom, and that is something that I feel is happening within the fandom of Once Upon a Time this week. And this is not having a go at anyone within the fandom and anyone who has particular attachments to particular pairings or particular characters. This is just my observation of what seems to be happening. What has happened in response to this particular character's death is a huge number of fans who are very engaged fans, so it's not just casual viewers, it's not just people who watch the show from time to time or tune in each week but they don't really engage in any other level. These are like hardcore oncers. These are people who are on Twitter tweeting about each episode, watching the promos and the previews and talking about them. It's people who really care about the show and really love the show. And it means a lot to them. And what a lot of them have been coming out and saying since the last episode is that they are going to leave the fandom, that unless this character is miraculously brought back, which the chances of that being able to happen are very slim, and the actor in question who played that particular character has suggested through interviews that they don't believe that the character is ever coming back, and the actor themselves is not particularly happy about that from the tone of their interviews. So it doesn't look like the character's ever going to come back, and huge portions of the fan base are now saying, that's it, I'm done. I'm not watching the show anymore. You killed off my favourite character, you ruined my favourite storyline, you took away part of the reason that I love this show. Therefore, unless you change it, I mean, there's a petition. There's like a petition going on online right now to get this character brought back. So unless you do it, unless you change what you've done and bring this character back, I'm done and I'm walking away from the show. Now, there's an issue there, because what I've been thinking about is that when you start to watch a show for the first time, when you know nothing about it from before, when you are seeing it all for the first time, you're meeting these characters for the first time. If you are drawn to that show, if you are drawn to those characters, if you are drawn to the themes of the show, that is through the writers. You know, the writers aren't necessarily, unless maybe it is something that's based on a series of books or whatever, these writers have created a story that you have felt a connection with, and that's why you've started to watch the show. So, is it fair to then say, wow, this wonderful creation of yours, I love it, this is a wonderful idea, these characters are so vibrant and strong and complex and interesting, and the story that you've created has really gripped me and grabbed me, and I want to know what happens next. But I only want to know what happens next if I like it. The way I see it is that we fall in love with a show because of what the writers have done. And of course there are going to be instances throughout shows. I'm going to just cite an example right now. Pretty Little Liars season 6B was absolutely dreadful. It was absolutely awful. If you watch my videos, you will probably have noticed that I started reviewing 6B, so I did reviews for I think the first 3, maybe 4 episodes, and then I didn't review any more of them because I didn't have anything nice to say, and I thought, what's the point? What is the point in me sitting filming these videos when I don't have anything positive to say? I don't understand why the writers have made the choices that they have, and they were fundamental changes in character behaviour, and you know, we've known these characters for a very long time, and suddenly they were totally unrecognisable. They were doing things that they would never have done before. The friendships that were so important to the show were all crumbling away, and it just was an absolute mess, quite frankly. I'm hoping that season 7 is better, because despite the fact that it was terrible, I've watched the promo for 7 and it actually looks more promising, so I'm holding out a tiny bit of hope for that. But of course there will be instances where something loses its charm, or it just goes on for that little bit too long. You know, the first 3 or 4 seasons are really, really great, and then it just starts to dip and things don't work out as well. So of course there are times where you're going to feel that the writing's changed and you don't sort of engage with it anymore. But when it comes to actual storyline events, so one-off kind of events that happen within the show to change the course of a storyline, is it really fair, if we've invested in a show because we like the writing and we like the themes of the show and we like the characters within the show, and I know that a lot of people will argue in terms of this Once Upon a Time storyline that it feels slightly contradictory to one of the main themes of the show, which is hope, and a lot of people are saying that it doesn't really feel like it's in keeping with that, but it just feels like there's this tension between a show now, the market's so saturated, there's so many new shows getting put out every single year, so in order for you to get anywhere, you need to grow a big fan base. You need to grow a loyal, dedicated fan base who aren't only going to tune into the show when it's actually airing, but who are going to talk about it on social media, who are going to tweet about it, who are going to post on Instagram about it, who are going to make videos about it. You want to create that really passionate fan base, and that's what keeps the networks renewing your show every year, is to see that ratings are good, fan engagement is high, people are interested in the show and they're talking about the show, and it's making people watch the content on that channel. So you need a fan base, and it's this really difficult, complex thing where the show, especially when it comes to Once Upon a Time, but in regard to any show, they do kind of owe their success in a lot of ways to the fans, because no matter how good the writing is and no matter how solid the idea behind the show is or how high quality the production is, if you don't have people watching it, you're going to get cancelled. And it happens time and time again. Very often you get a really good show that has potential, but it just doesn't quite get enough people watching it, and it then gets cancelled. So Once Upon a Time is going into season 6. It's been renewed for a 6th season, and it owes the fact that it's reached this point to its fans, because its fans have continually supported the show, have continually turned out in droves at Comic-Con to see the actors, to see their interviews, to tweet and talk about it and make it this really fun, like, fan engaged experience. Part of what I love about the show is that I feel so engaged with this fandom and I feel like I'm a part of it, and there's something really fun and special about that, especially since there are kind of smaller fandoms within the overall show. So you've got the show, and then within a lot of different shows you'll have people who are fans of particular pairings or particular friendships, particular storylines, and you can find other people through social media that feel the same way you do. So I think that that's really special, and it's so crucial to the success of a show these days. But does that then give us the right to say to the writers, I only want the show that I want, I only want the storylines that I've created in my head, I only want the story to go the way I want it to go? For a writer, if you've got something if you've planned out how your story is going to progress, and I'm not sure, again, when it comes to this particular storyline that's triggered me to make this video, I feel that this hasn't been in the works for all that long. I think this has been, I would say, a fairly recent decision to do this. But if you've started writing a show, if you've created it and you've created these characters and you've got a plan in your head for where they go, you can't predict things like the way that fans are going to react to certain characters. You think you can, but you can, and you'll sometimes find a surprise where two actors have unexpected chemistry and they weren't actually planned to be together at any point, but the way that the fans have engaged with it and the way that the chemistry is so evident on screen, you end up changing your mind and you end up putting them together, and that's amazing, and that just shows what that kind of fan engagement can do in a positive sense, is that it can help to kind of shape storylines that maybe weren't planned before, because you realise, wow, actually, look how excited the fans are about this. Why is that? Look back, see the way that these actors are interacting and go, oh, that's actually got a lot of potential. What could we do with that? And that creates, a fun new storyline that you maybe hadn't expected. However, if you have had a plan in your head, and this isn't about Once Upon a Time, this is just about TV in general, but if you've had a plan for your show from start to finish, now most people don't, and networks can make decisions sometimes that change the direction you want to go in. Lost, for example, I don't know if anyone knows this, but in the pilot episode of Lost, and this isn't really a spoiler because if you've not seen Lost, you'll know this character. Even if you've not seen it, you'll know this character is in it for a bit. The character of Jack was supposed to die at the end of the first episode. So the pilot episode, you were supposed to engage with Jack as the hero, as the saviour kind of character in this situation, and then they were going to kill him off at the end of the episode. So that was going to throw the viewers into turmoil, have connected to this character and gone, oh, he's the one that's going to save the day, and then they were going to lose him. The network said no. The network said, no, we love this story, we love this vision, we love the idea of this show, but we don't think that that's right. Fans won't, there's not been enough time yet for them to get engaged with the show to do something like that to them, completely rip them out of their comfort zone. We need someone positive to hold on to, and that's going to be Jack. So networks can get involved and make decisions that maybe change the direction you'd planned it for. But as a writer, if you've got a vision for a show and it's for seasons worth of content and you know how the story's going to go, and then you do what you've got planned, even though you know that it's not necessarily what people are going to like, and people then turn around and say, okay, I loved your show and I engaged with your show from the beginning because I loved your writing and I loved the way that you created this, but now you're not doing what I like, therefore I'm going to walk away from the show. Another major show, I'm not going to say what it is again because I don't want spoilers, but another major, very famous show recently killed off a character unexpectedly that caused great outrage on social media, and that show has now been cancelled. If you are involved in the kind of TV world in any sort of way, you'll know that the past week or so has been that's that time of year again where the networks are announcing which shows have been renewed, which shows have been cancelled, and which shows have been picked up. So what pilots we're going to start to see in the fall or in the autumn. And so that's that time of year, and this show is a huge show. It's a very, very famous show, and it's been cancelled, and it has been going on for a long time now, so maybe it had reached the end of its shelf life anyway. But could that be potentially because people have tuned out because they haven't liked that decision? It's difficult because it's this catch-22 of you want to please your fans because you want your fans to enjoy what you're doing, but at the same time, if you as a writer have a story that you want to tell, and that's why you've done this show because it's a story that means something to you, it means something to the other writers that you're working with, and you've got this vision for what it's going to be, it just seems incredibly unfair that this sort of social media age is creating this sort of culture where we're trying to hold writers to ransom and saying, we're only going to watch if you're going to do what we want. In which case, like, the TV shows might as well be written as fan fiction. Like, If that is what people want, if people only want to see the stories that they have created in their head, so they see the characters, they fall in love with them, and then they create their own stories for them in their head, that could actually be a really interesting way of making a TV show. Like, genuinely just get people to write fan fiction pieces, send them in, create the story as you go based on fan responses. But that's not the way that TV works right now. The way that TV works right now is that the writers are in charge of what happens, and we get to respond to it and choose how we respond to it. And, you know, I'm not saying for a minute that if something horrible happens in a TV show that you hate, you should not continue to watch that show out of any sort of weird obligation. If you feel that it's changed, it's not the show it once was, that's absolutely fine. But I do feel like this idea of setting up petitions and saying we're going to boycott, we're not going to watch anymore unless you do what we want, takes away from the whole creative purpose of like getting lost in a show that's someone else's story. So just because you don't like a decision, does that mean that you are entitled, because you are a supporter of the show, to say, no, not going to watch unless you change it? I don't think it is. I think when it comes to TV deaths and character deaths, that's a whole other issue, and I think that there's something interesting about certain shows. Because in most shows, if a major character is killed off unexpectedly, it doesn't get a good response. It doesn't necessarily mean that, as is what's happening here, loads of people are going to boycott, but generally speaking, it's not, you know, people don't like it when they lose a character they love, and that's completely understandable. Whether the actor's chosen to leave or the writers have decided that this is a more interesting direction to take another character, people aren't going to be happy when a character's killed off. I feel like if you are a show that is going to go down that route of just being like, everyone is expendable, you kind of have to do it from the word go, or you don't get away with it. A major show at the moment which has taken that approach is obviously Game of Thrones. From season 1, Game of Thrones took the approach that everyone was expendable, no one was safe, any one of your favourite characters or multiple numbers of your favourite characters could die at any time. Again, this isn't really a spoiler because I feel like that's something that's everywhere, and also I'm not naming names. But it is one of these shows that has become sort of famous for having that fearless, we don't care, we will get rid of anybody attitude. I think if you are going to go down that route, you kind of have to do it from the start and just make your fans understand that they're watching a show where growing attached to particular characters is probably futile. Another show that I think did that and did it very well, because it was the first experience that I had of a show like that, was 24. 24 took me completely by surprise because it was the first show that I'd ever watched where I lost so many of my favourite characters over the course of several seasons. It was another one of these shows that said, for the purpose of the story, for the greater good, to create the best story that we can create, everyone bar Jack Bauer in this story is expendable. And you don't know when your favourite character might go. They might go in a really huge dramatic moment, or they might go in a quiet moment where you have to take a moment and take a step back to go, well, hang on a minute, did we really lose that person? Because of the themes of the show, it's a show about terrorism, and it's a very extreme, heightened version of that type of storyline. So you were losing characters that you loved quite frequently, but there's not that many shows that get away with that. And I think that to get away with it, as I say, you kind of have to just make that your thing. If you're going to kill off beloved characters, it kind of has to become your thing. So if you're going to do it regularly, a la 24 or Game of Thrones, you have to kind of start early and be like, this is what we do. We don't care, we will get rid of anybody, because all we care about is getting the best possible story out of this show. So fans can cry, they can be devastated, they can say, how could you do this? But they can't be surprised. Whereas with other shows, I feel like when they take that risk, and they take that chance to go, well, what we believe is the right thing for this particular story. This is how we see, this is how we envision this character moving forward. Therefore, they have to lose this person. Or, you know, for this particular character, we feel it's the end of the road because of ABC reasons. And then fans respond so badly, it just puts writers in an incredibly difficult position. I just think that the whole thing is really fascinating, and I think that it's this delicate balance between, you do want to please the fans because the fans are what keep you on air, so you get to keep making that show because of the fans. But do you want to keep making the show, making decisions that you don't believe in only in order to stay on air longer? Would you rather tell the story that you want to tell, that means something to you and that matters to you, make the decisions that you as a writer feel are right for that character and for that character's story arc, and be cancelled early, or change what you're doing to please droves of obsessive fans and not tell the story that you want to tell but be kept on air for longer? And it's not always going to happen. There will be times where fans go outraged and then they kind of calm down a bit and everything's fine, but I just think we're seeing quite a lot lately of this really complicated online, and it's becoming really nasty as well. Like, there's huge fights within fandoms. The Once fandom this week has been terrible. There have been horrible things being said across social media aimed at the writers. Like, the abuse that the writers have got is absolutely ludicrous. I personally I just point out that I'm not a huge fan of this decision that they've made, but the abuse that they have been getting has been absolutely horrific. I can't understand it. And not only that, but other actors and other characters within the show are getting blamed and getting abuse for it being their fault. And it's just, it's that kind of obsessive level of fan culture that, now that we've got social media, can become quite a damaging thing. It's a positive in terms of the ability to engage with other fans, but it can have a negative side to it. So anyway, that's my thoughts. That's everything that I really wanted to say, I think, in this video. It was really just more a kind of sort of thought process that had been going through my brain over the past week when I had been seeing a lot of this stuff happening, and it just made me think, what would I want to do if I was a writer? I would want to tell the story that I believed in, and I think that that's difficult, especially in this Once Upon a Time storyline. Basically, there are certain characters who are benefiting from this storyline, and characters who are being kind of damaged by this storyline, and unfortunately the people who are benefiting are part of like one small fandom within the Once fandom, and the people who are being damaged are part of another. And so it feels, and I can understand because I'm part of the people who are benefiting, but I can understand from the point of view of being a fan of the other side, the other group of characters, why it would feel unfair, and it would feel that your characters that matter to you were being neglected. And I think there's an attitude that the other part of the fandom is responsible for this, so it's the other part of the fandom is responsible for these bad writing decisions, where I actually think that it just so happens, I think the way you have to look at it is, it just so happens that the storyline that Adam and Eddie and the writers for the show believe in moving forward just happens to have this effect. It doesn't mean that they are prioritising one half of the fandom over the other. It just happens to be that the story that they've planned for the future takes this group of characters in this direction, which seems like a nice direction, and takes another character in a more difficult direction because they believe that that's what the best thing for the story is. We might not understand it, we might not like it, but I kind of have to believe, in terms of any show, that the writers make decisions, unless they're backed into a corner where they have an actor make the decision to leave the show unexpectedly. Obviously that causes a problem and they have to change their plan, but generally I think that we have to believe that writers are doing what they're doing for a purpose. And if you don't like it, you can walk away from the show. You can just go, do you know what, I'm not going to watch anymore because I don't like what they've done. But I feel like by creating this huge social media outcry and saying, we will keep watching, but only if you fix your mistake, it's taken away from the kind of creative experience of it. It's making it a collaborative experience, which, as I'd say, I think actually could be really interesting, but it's making a collaborative experience when, in fact, the way that TV works right now, your job as a viewer is to kind of watch what the writers create and decide for yourself whether or not you enjoy it, not make demands and threaten to leave the fandom so the show gets cancelled if the thing that you want to happen doesn't happen. So anyway, I've probably repeated myself about 16 times in this video, but that was my thoughts. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about this, if you have managed to get through this whole video, how you kind of feel about that conflict between social media and television at the moment, and the positive sides of it as well, because there are a lot of positives. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope that you're having a great week, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye!